Hello, welcome to 5 Let's Not Meet stories. Let's get started. Number 1. I worked in this crappy little restaurant when I was 16. One afternoon, this sort of young, 25 to 30 disheveled man with long scraggly hair comes in to eat. He has a big vintage camera around his neck and takes my photo the second I greet him. I don't say anything because I was very non-confrontational when I was young. But I ask him how many people are in his party. He stares blankly and points to himself. I assume he means one, so I sit him at a small booth. His server Anna goes over and tries to interact, but he obviously does not speak English beyond pointing at the menu. As soon as Anna walks away, he snaps a photo of her backside. As he's sitting there, he keeps taking pictures of my coworkers with his big, obnoxious camera. And by now, my coworkers and even some customers are getting alarmed. So the owner's son, Antoine, who happened to be Anna's boyfriend, comes out from the kitchen to firmly tell the guy to either stop or leave. The guy immediately just gets up and leaves without a word. It's near closing time, so I finish up my hostess duties and get out of there maybe an hour or two later. As I'm walking out and saying my goodbyes to the staff still doing cleanup, I see through the back door that Antoine is yelling at the dumpster, or more accurately, at that skeevy dude with the camera who is sitting beside it, taking photos of people outside having a cigarette or walking to their cars. The guy just left. He calmly walked right out of the parking lot and started on the road that led out of town after being yelled at. And as far as I know, none of my former coworkers ever met him again. I don't care if you speak English or not, man. Crouching behind a dumpster is creepy in any language. Number 2. To explain the situation at the time, I was 25, and I have a bit of a savior complex. I was dating a guy who had a drug problem. I didn't realize how serious it was until later. So this happened in a bad, unsafe neighborhood on the East Coast. I don't remember what we were doing or where we were going, but we stopped at a gas station. This is your typical rundown. People sell drugs outside gas station. In the daytime, I felt uneasy at this place, but this particular night, I'm pretty sure it was a weekend, I did not feel safe at all. For context, I'm a petite girl and I look younger than I am. I'm in my late 20s, but I easily pass for a high school or a college age girl. This night, there was a group of men outside the store. Every one of them looked sketchy as hell, and they were laughing and yelling. We pull up and my boyfriend was driving. He looked at the group of men uneasily, then asked me to go buy him cigarettes. I said no, pointing at the group of men. He begged until I relented. I started walking up to the store, and one guy in particular looked at me and smiled. He was wearing an all-white suit, complete with a matching hat and sunglasses, even though it was nighttime. As I approached, he greeted me. "Hey, little girl." Being polite, I smiled and walked into the store, bought the cigarettes, and walked back out. This time, the guy stepped toward me. "Hey, little girl, why don't you come over here?" I tried ignoring him, but he stepped in my path. He was stocky and probably around 5'10". I'm 5'5". He smiled again and said, "I don't see very many pretty white girls around here. Why don't you come meet my friends?" At this point, I run past him and get into the car and tell my boyfriend to go. I told him what the guy said, and my boyfriend explained that the man is a well-known pimp and he likes to scout women in that neighborhood. I was so mad he made me get out of the car knowing there was a pimp there, and knowing that I'm small and skinny and couldn't have defended myself against this guy and his friends. This was not the only dangerous situation I got into because of that guy. Thankfully, I didn't date him for very long. Creepy top hat pimp. Let's not meet. Number 3. So I live in a pretty rural area of England. There's one fairly small city nearby, and so since everything is so sparse, people tend to be quite friendly and welcoming, and people do things that in larger cities or populated areas you would never get away with. For example, I often leave my front door unlocked at night or my bike unlocked on my lawn. It's a trustworthy place, and although crime is present, it's definitely not a big issue. I just turned 18, but I think at the time of this story I was still 17. I'm also a dude, and so stuff like this doesn't usually happen to me. One day, I was chilling at the bus stop on my way into the city center where I walk about 10 minutes to college. I had only just gotten there, and it must have been about 11 a.m., so there wasn't any rush or any cars around or anything. After a few minutes, a car pulls up to the bus stop where I'm standing and rolls down the window. I didn't think that was weird. I often get asked for directions around where I live, so I assumed this is what they wanted. I see it's a small but very raggedy and dirty old lady driving a car, and she's alone. Her car smells a bit weird, as if she had just been driving through a swamp, but the smell is coming from the inside. I say hey and ask if she needs anything, and she tells me she's going to the city and asks if I need a ride. I thought this was really odd, but I wasn't threatened, me being a healthy and semi-tall 17-year-old guy and her being a tiny old lady. I remember not wanting to show how weird this all was out of respect, so I just politely said, "No thanks, the bus will be here soon anyway, but thank you." This is where things get a little weird, because she begins persisting and getting visibly angry. She says again that I should get in her car, and once again I just simply say no, expecting her to drive away. I begin to think that maybe this lady has some kind of mental issues due to her raggedy look and weird mannerisms. At this point, she's kind of just staring at me, kind of how you look at something when you're trying to process why it's happening, as if she's expecting me to just get in her car. I say once more, trying to be more aggressive, that I don't want to ride. She looks as though she's going to get out of the car for a second, but in all the fuss, I didn't even notice the bus approaching down the long stretch of a road. She seems to notice it coming too, and simply drives away, seemingly offended that I didn't get in the car. I got on the bus and just forgot about the whole interaction. I remember thinking afterwards if I knew this woman or if she might be friends with my mom, but I'm certain I had never seen her before. I certainly remember her strange, rough look and bad smell. I haven't seen her around my area since. A strange old lady offered me a lift and acted offended when I didn't get in her car. It weirded me out. Number 4. A story that stuck with me. FYI, I was a 20-year-old, and I'm a guy. I was working a casual job that allowed me to choose my own hours. This worked really well for me as I was a student, so throughout the day I would study and attend lectures, head home, chill, then bus down to work. My usual shift would start somewhere around 5 p.m., and I would also work till 1 a.m. or so. On this night, I decided I didn't want to walk home, 40-minute walk, and instead decided to catch the bus. The last one left at 11:50 p.m., or 2 minutes away from my work. It was all normal until I came close to my usual stop. There were 2 routes I used to get home, the quick and the long. Original names, I know. The long was my usual. It was under lit streets and was on my relatively busy street, so I would usually take that to be safe. The quick meant I would wait one more stop up the road and walk through some back alleys behind the community center. This night, I was lazy and chose the close and quick route home. Bad mistake. The alleyway was one that I had always felt uncomfortable in. It's very short, only a few minutes walking and you're out, but it's pitch black and has a few 90-degree turns, so you're not able to see the end of the alley when you're in the middle section. The fences surrounding were also very high, so no house lights helped illuminate it. And finally, there were some bushes at the end of the middle section beside the community center, a place where local teens would hang out during the day. I got off the bus and started walking home. I automatically felt a sense of worry as I entered the community center property. I always did walking through there at night on the odd occasion I had. As I headed into the alley, it was pitch black. I couldn't see a foot in front of me, and I headed around the first corner. As I continued, I felt there was someone with me. The hairs on my neck stood on end. I hurried up. As I did, I heard them. Footsteps. Someone was right behind me. They were following me almost in unison, but I could definitely hear them. To this day, I remember exactly what I had been wearing. A gray and yellow jumper, black jeans, and my black Doc Martens. Now, Doc Martens are loud shoes, so it took a while for me to hear the footsteps over my own feet. But the thing is, whoever it was kept getting slightly out of step with me. I felt petrified, so I continued to walk a steady pace. I realized the bushes were coming up, and I knew this would be where something could go horribly wrong. I pulled out my phone and pretended to make a phone call. I can't remember to whom exactly, maybe my mom or something, and talked about the fact I was coming down the alley. See you soon. You should almost be able to see me. The footsteps behind me continued. I could literally feel the person behind me. They were so close I could smell them. Imagine how close you have to be to someone to smell them. Most strongly cigarettes, cheap deodorant, and BO. I made the last turn. I had passed the bushes. Finally, street lights illuminated the end of the alleyway, and though my brain was saying run, I simply walked, hoping I wouldn't get pulled back. I was on the lit street, relieved I could see. I looked back at the alley as I hurried away, only daring to do this once my house was in sight, and I was clear of the confined alley. There at the entry stood a pair of feet, only shoes were visible, black and worn. I couldn't see the rest of whomever it was at the light, and the shadow of the trees at the end of the alley obscured my vision. The feet turned and walked back into the alley. I have never been more terrified than I did that night. I never walked that alley again at dark. Honestly, whoever that person was, their intentions were not nice. Let's not meet, and let no one else ever meet that person in the alley. Number 5. Almost 10 years ago, I was desperately searching for housing. I had 3 dogs, 2 of my own and a foster, 2 of which were considered restricted breeds in most places. This was also at the height of breed restriction mania in the U.S., so I had been really struggling for about 3 months to find anywhere to live. Basically, looking every day, all day, while living out of my car and bartending, drinking like a fish. I find a room for rent on CL that is dog friendly and in my price range. Oh sweet Jesus, please let this work out. I call and arrange to see the room. The house is a small 2-bedroom on a rapidly developing side of town. Lots of shady foot traffic and not safe to walk at night, but I can work with this. I'm already moving out of state in 6 months, so I just need to make it work for a little bit. And honestly, it looked like a nice little house. Well landscaped, garden out front, so far so good. The landlord greets me at the door. He's in his 50s, tall and slender with salt and pepper hair, a thick accent, and eyebrows and a weathered face. I ask about his accent. He says he's Peruvian. We'll call him Louis. Once inside, I notice every bit of wall space is covered with huge paintings. Wall-sized paintings of very dark scenes. In each is a woman painted as the antagonist of what is not clear, but they're always gesturing in a very exaggerated way. And the setting is almost always a dark gray or black room. In some of these paintings, in the background, there is also a frail old man in tighty-whities, standing as if he is fending off an attack. I find out this is the landlord's father. I see the paintings and feel immediately uneasy, but I'm desperate and try to remain open-minded. I don't know art. I'm not going to read into this because I don't have anywhere else to go. What could go wrong? I tell myself. He smiles with only his lips and shows me my room. It's a small room, across from the kitchen and diagonal to the bathroom. It comes with shelving and a bed. I had no furniture to speak of. There are 2 doors, the entrance to the room and another door on the wall across from the bed, perpendicular to the entry. I'm starting to feel a huge sense of relief because this will work for me. I can do this. He rattles off something about the second door being locked and how it goes to a storage room for his stuff. It locks from the other side. Okay, I think whatever. He then proceeds to mention he lives on the property. This was not in the CL ad, but at this point I don't care. He shows me his studio in the tiny backyard, a converted shack. Sure, fine, whatever. I think again. Odd, but I need a room. I move in. 4 to 5 months living there, I have a guy I just start seeing. Stayed the night with me for the first time. We come back to my place after closing the bar down around 4 a.m. I put on the TV for him to watch and I promptly pass out. The next morning I wake up and he's still awake. We walk to get breakfast at a cafe down the road, and as we are being served our coffee he tells me, your landlord tried to come into your room this morning. You're surprisingly a heavy sleeper. This isn't good. I am in complete and utter disbelief. He explains, about 5:30, when my landlord normally leaves for work, he heard Lewis shuffle in the back door. He hears Lewis go to the bathroom and turn on the light. Normal. He then also watches my doorknob slowly begin to turn. Not normal. The guy I was seeing was a habitual door locker due to a military background, so Lewis was not able to open the door, but still, not good. It dawns on me. I am almost always asleep when Lewis leaves for work, except for these 2 times. I am incredibly nearsighted, and on one of these occasions, as I lay in bed staring at the TV, I heard what sounded a lot like my door being very carefully opened. I talk myself out of what I think I just heard as I hear my door shut. I tried to brush it off and life continued on. Nobody would be peeking in my room at night, right? Nope, no way. So I open my eyes and I'm looking into the blackness that is my cracked bedroom door. I squint into the black slit between the frame and the door and watch my door slowly shut. Lots of things started coming together. He was watching me. He's basically been using my room to live out his voyeuristic fantasies. After being informed of what was happening, I waited up one morning after work to really be certain, and sure enough, he shuffled in from the back, turns the bathroom light on, and carefully opens my door. Well, that settled it. I locked my door at night from this moment forward, or made it obvious I was awake when I knew he'd be leaving in the morning, until I could move out. I also hung a large tapestry over the second door, although I never figured out how he was able to watch me from there. Hey everybody, I hope you all enjoyed. Like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching. And lastly, you may be watching me, but who's watching you?